Hi, beautiful souls, and welcome back to this week's episode. Today, I have a guest from the other side of the world, in Arizona, in USA, and Craig and I had like a pre-call 1 week ago, and I was fascinating about his topic that he's going to share today. Because Craig is a hypnotherapist and also works with past lives regression. So, warm welcome,
Mhm.
Craig,
Oh,
to
thank you so
today's
much.
episode. Yeah.
Just from our brief chat a little bit ago, is it's going to be a fun conversation. So, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
open
I
to
think so
whatever questions
too.
you might have and whatever I can do to maybe help explain this work a little bit more. I know it's sometimes can seem a bit out there with between the word hypnosis, let alone doing some of that deeper spiritual work like past life regression. So, whatever, however you like this to go, I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So let's like I always do, but I really love the context. So go back in time with a little bit from your story, who Greg was
Mhm.
when you
Oh,
grew
sure.
up, like when you were a child, and yeah,
Yeah.
and then we dive into
Okay.
the other
Well,
stuff.
it's I grew up in a very kind of religious household, and not that my parents, well, not even a household, a religious world. My world was very religious. I was born and grew up in the Episcopal Church, with if you're not
Mm,
familiar, it's kind of Catholicism light from England, Protestant Church, and I actually like that very, very much. I like the robes and the candles and the kind of ritual aspects of it are I think fascinating and interesting. But I started going to a Baptist run school from the sixth grade to
mm,
12th grade. And so Monday through Friday, I'm at a school that's very heavily religious. All my friends at school was far away, and all my friends in the neighborhood and the neighborhood school went to the church because that was a church right there. And I was sure if it
mm,
was Methodist or Lutheran or something else with us, we would have gone to that church, but it was just the neighborhood church, the Episcopal church. And so, you know, afternoons and evenings, if there's a youth group thing or something, we're always hanging out and doing church stuff on the weekends, or of course Sunday church. And so I just grew up into that, and then my activities became more and more centered around uh, that experience of that
mm,
focused kind of spirituality. Even joining the charismatic movement in my late teens, because I think I was craving, striving for these certain aspects of that experience that made me feel good. And so I saw that, okay, well, it's these places specifically, or these groups of people, or these teachings that were doing it. And it was hard to replicate, these
mm,
feelings of spiritual, deep feelings. I was occasionally catch a glimpse of. And it was moving to a smaller town. I grew up in San Diego, California, Southern California, and that's below Los Angeles, right above the border of Mexico. And I moved to Santa Cruz, California, which is right below San Francisco, and right there in the ocean, a beautiful small
mm,
little beach community, but also 5 minutes away from the extraordinary redwood forest. But there's also the great, as they say here in America, is quite the cliche, the melting pot, and there are people from all over the world, cultures all over the world.
mm,
And Silicon Valley is right there in San Jose and Mountain View and Cupertino, let alone San Francisco is right there. And there's festivals all the time on the weekends, and you see
mm,
all sorts of different kinds of dance or music and food, and you take a Zen meditation class, or you take a martial arts class, or African dance class, or all sorts of bookstores in the downtown area. I think there was at the time when I was there in the 90s, 7 or 8 bookstores, all focused on different things. And
mm,
of course, one of my more favorite ones was the more spiritual bookstore, what call here the New Age bookstore, and also the used bookstore, the huge 3-story used bookstore was had a great spirituality section. I spent a lot of time there, but you learn about
mm,
these other cultures and their music and uh, their philosophies, and then their theories of life, the universe, and everything. which then, of course, leads to more understanding their spirituality. And so my worldview really started to widen and open up. And this was a slow drip. It wasn't like it happened overnight, but over years, learning about different cultures and kind of diving into understanding more about the world. But I was also at the time struggling with anxiety and depression since I was a kind of young man, a teenager. And this is the 1980s. I'm in graduating high school, 1985. There's no internet. There's no, ways of reaching out to people. There's no WhatsApp or texting or anything. And so it's really just whatever talk therapist you could find in the yellow pages, the big yellow pages book, or a 14-year-old's not going to ask another bunch of 14-year-olds what psychotherapists they're going to. It's whatever book you could find at the library, the bookstore. And so I just kind of, leaned into it, I guess. It's just like, this is the way it is. And I did a lot of personal development and looked for spiritual ways during the 90s as I was growing, growing in my mind, growing in my soul. And it was really the early 2000s when, as the internet's coming out, in the late 90s, in the late 90s, a lot of those antidepressant drugs were coming out, Prozac and things. And so the conversation opened up. Talk shows were Oprah and Phil Donahue, and at least in America, these are the big daytime shows that we're talking about. And then you could go on forums and with your 14.4 modem back in 1998 and start researching this stuff and download your picture in 12 hours. But you're able to access a lot more information, and the conversation opened up because people could start talking about Prozac, how well it's doing for them, but not this person, and why, all the questions were starting to be asked. And so one of the aspects that was being talked about, like in the personal growth movement at the time, whether it's Tony Robbins or whoever, blog posts were out there. And of course you could hear interviews on talk shows and even go to workshops and things. One of the things people were mentioning was hypnotherapy. And eventually to the point where it's like, well, everybody's mentioning that, and as a way to access the conscious mind and change feeling states around traumatic experiences and change programming in terms of how you feel confident in life and various aspects of life. And so I started using that, found somebody I could work with, and did some deep healing work just, through accessing parts of my own subconscious mind to change that programming to relieve that hurt and pain. And one other aspect of hypnotherapy is by moving into this more relaxed state of mind and body, basically just moving down into the alpha and even theta brainwave states. So the very basic biology of it is that it's just how fast your brain is operating. And so when somebody's in the more conscious awareness of this present moment, we're having this conversation, you're in the beta brainwave state, firing about 18, 20 cycles per second. You've seen those videos maybe on YouTube with the electrical storm in the brain when somebody's thinking a thought or waving their hands around while talking or feeling an emotion. It's kind of lightning storm of electricity as neurons fire to each other. Well, how fast that lightning storm happens is what brainwave state you're in. And if you slow it down because you're moving into a more daydreamy state, your mind floats away, you're in a boring meeting at work, or maybe remember back in school and there's a class that didn't interest you so much, your mind floats away and you start thinking about the weekend and how much fun you're going to have, or you went on that vacation a year ago, how much fun that was, you need to go back. And you're not in the present moment anymore. Well, one aspect of that is that your brain is slowed down. You're now firing around 12 cycles per second. That puts you in that daydreamy, hazy state, and even moving down to the not really awake, not really asleep, theta brainwave state of 6 cycles per second. So by accessing these states, not only can you create healing by accessing subconscious mind, your conscious mind kind of drifts off and slows down and floats away, but you can access that subconscious mind, but also deeper spiritual states. Of course, there's other ways of doing this, whether, back in the 90s, it was more like the LSD and and pot and things like this. Nowadays, people are going on ayahuasca ceremonies and having extraordinary experiences like that. That's not something I could, well, especially in the 90s, you couldn't go on ayahuasca ceremonies, and it was pretty underground. And I certainly wasn't hearing about it. And I wasn't too interested in just taking chemicals that somebody made in their bathtub. And so this interested me very much, because meditation was nice, but it was also, the point of meditation is to keep your mind in this present moment. And even though you're in a more relaxed state, it's like, bring it back to this breath. It wasn't giving me the spiritual experience, maybe a more personal growth experience and calming my nervous system down and all the other aspects that something like Zen meditation or transcendental meditation can offer you. But it wasn't giving me the spiritual experience I was looking for that I had experienced from time to time. And one aspect of therapeutic hypnosis is by moving into those more deeper states of subconscious or superconscious, what some people call connecting your higher self, you can have these more deeper spiritual healing experiences or discovery experiences of whether it's past life or moving up into the soul world. And so I went to a great school here in America called Hypnotherapy Academy America. It's a wonderful school. At least back in the day, I think they're online now after the whole COVID situation. But it was in class. You had to go there, rent a little apartment because it was really intensive. 500 hours, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And you first learn about the more clinical aspects of hypnotherapy, where you learn to deal with trauma, somebody else, working with somebody else, and maybe trauma they've experienced in the past, or the hurt or the pain, or the maybe anxiety they're feeling, or the overwhelm or the stress or the anger, the resentment, building confidence in areas of life where they feel they don't have it. And that was the first 6 weeks, just that training, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And you learn about it. You see a demonstration at the front of class. You break up into small groups, and you work with each other. You start actually practicing this stuff. And of course, then it's, it was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, here in America, and there's not much going on there. And so, you're just working with each other on the weekends. It was just an extraordinary experience. And that's the first 3 modules. The 4th module is medical hypnosis. That's 100 hours right there, learning about pain control and healing acceleration and boosting your immune system. But the last 100 hours, last 2 weeks, is the more spiritual side of this. So once you've learned about relieving the trauma, the hurt, the pain, discovering where that may be held within the body, that book says the body keeps the score, then you learn about the spiritual aspects and go even deeper. It's like, well, now that you understand how we can hold on to this trauma, what if it didn't happen in childhood? What if we're looking at a past life? And the work I do more specifically, because I have all the continuing education kind of stuff I've done over the years, is focused more on the Michael Newton protocols that he developed and trained. He himself passed away in 2011, but the Michael Newton Institute is still around. They just released a book a couple years ago, I believe, of new research. But he started in the 1970s researching this because he accidentally regressed somebody as a psychotherapist using hypnotherapy to look for some, not look for trauma, but identify some hurt and pain that they thought maybe have happened in childhood for this person. Well, they regress to that point so they can do some healing work around that to find out more aspects of what happened and why they kind of held on to this hurt and pain. Well, in that regression, the guy kept going. He went past childhood. He went past being a newborn. He went past being in utero, and he went back to soul state or soul world or spirit world or whatever you want to, life between lives is what Michael Newton called it. And he did this deep healing work there, and it was done. And so Michael Newton was extraordinarily fascinated by this. This is 1969, and extraordinarily fascinated by this. And so he wondered if other people could do this. And so he started working with other people and seeing if he could get other people back to this day. Because when he did, it was kind of an accident. So he said, could you set up a kind of a protocol to get people? Because if he's just taking people back to childhood, most people are probably just going to go back to childhood because he had that focused target. Well, this guy, for whatever reason, kept going back. Well, could you do that on purpose? And he started working with people and seeing if that was possible. And he developed this protocol of how to do that. And that's the kind of protocol I follow. It's the one he talks about in his books like Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, and Life Between Lives. But as he was working with people, what he noticed is people were having similar experiences of soul world, this life between lives, of just being a soul between incarnating here on earth. And he started working with that. It's like asking questions. I mean, these are people, again, no internet. This is 1970. There's no internet. There's no real books. I mean, you could probably find a couple of specialized bookstores on this kind of stuff. But certainly they're, not in your mainstream bookstores. People aren't talking about this soul world, soul state. That's certainly not here in America. And these people don't know each other. They're from different backgrounds, different cultures, different age groups, different parts of the country. And yet they're having similar experiences. And so that's what he writes about in his books. And one aspect of that is we are coming back to earth again and again as training to learn as souls. And some of that may have either required just for the learning experience, or at least have created some hurt and pain that we may still be holding on to. Just like somebody may be holding on to hurt and pain they encountered when they were 5 or 6 years old. Well, maybe now they're 50 or 60 or 70 years old. Logically, it's like, well, you were a child, let it go. Well, you can't sometimes when you're holding on to it tightly because it hurts so badly. It was so traumatic. Or you just don't know any different, especially as a 5-year-old, you don't know any different. And now this is just, as I kind of struggle with depression, you're just like, well, I guess this is the way it is. Well, what if you were to release it? And what if it had connections to a past life? One of these past lives we come back to again and again. Sort of like here in America, when we go to school, we start in the 1st grade, then we go all the way to 12th grade and graduate high school. Then you go on to university and get your bachelor's degree, your master's degree, maybe you get your PhD. Well, this takes multiple years. Maybe you're getting your PhD by the time you're 25, if not even later. And that's pretty extraordinary, quick way of getting your PhD by 25. Well, if you can think of every grade, starting at the age of 5, and then at 6, you're in the 2nd grade, and at 7, you're in the 3rd grade, at 4th grade, you're 8 years old. As a life, you're building upon the knowledge that you receive. So let's say mathematics. Well, in the 1st grade, you're going to learn 2 + 2 = 4. And then as you progress, you're going to learn about your times tables. And then you're going to learn about long division. Then you're going to learn about fractions. And then in high school, you're 14, 15, 16, 17. You're learning about algebra and algebra 2 and calculus and trigonometry. And then you're getting your master's degree in mathematics, and you're writing those crazy equations on the chalkboard and the whiteboard. Well, you don't start with those crazy equations on the chalkboard that make no sense. You have to build up to understanding what all of that means, all those symbols and the various numbers, and this equals X and that equals Y. You have to build up to that. You start with 2 + 2 = 4. Well, if you can see, again, each grade, each year, as you progress through school as a life, well, we have to start and move and grow. And we may want to see or experience a learning and a way to develop through different perspectives. Like if we're here to, maybe we want to focus on wealth and abundance. Well, wouldn't it also be important to understand what it is to be poor and live paycheck to paycheck, and maybe go through a divorce and have your bank account wiped out and have to start over again? Would that be an important aspect of learning about wealth and abundance? And I'm being very broad and very general, but you see what I'm saying.
It's kind of my story.
Yeah. Well, it's like to say, it's like maybe it takes multiple lives. And I don't mean to hijack the conversation. And I think that was a long answer to a short question. But that's kind of, and now I'm talking to you. And so it's like this kind of slow widening of my world, and still learning, still growing, still finding books. I mean, I made a deal with myself that I can't buy any more books until I finish the books that I have. And, then you find another book and you buy it. Anyway. So it's just like, it's just so fascinating to learn and to grow. And I just did a workshop last summer with Brian Weiss, which is one of the, things on my list, things to do. Finally get to do a workshop with him. Cross off my bucket list. Man's 82 years old and he's still doing it. He's still out there teaching, and he's kind of semi-retired at this point, but this is so fascinating. I just can't imagine not wanting to learn more about it and continuing, working with people like this.
Yeah, I love it. And what you're sharing, like how you shared the past life, that for me, I see everything is so visual for me, so I can see everything. So thank you for that, because I also believe that sometimes it might be difficult, or whatever you say, to understand, but when you share it, like, but you have to start here and then you learn more and more, and because I mean it is a journey, and
Right.
and also to be, what do you say, I usually say to myself, because I also love the growth and all of, like, everything within this, there's so much to, like, discover.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, and then now I know this part and I have integrated in and released and blah blah blah, and then next thing comes.
And the next thing comes. Yeah. Well, it's just like school. It's like, okay, well, I learned 2 + 2 = 4. What else could I possibly need to learn? And well, now you need to know how to subtract, and now you need to know how to do your times tables. There's always something, but it doesn't mean like every life coming to Earth needs to be some sort of extraordinary learning experience where you find yourself on the battlefield, literal battlefields of war, running through bomb craters and seeing your friends get blown up. It doesn't always have to be that, or some extraordinarily difficult situation that you have to find the resiliency and resourcefulness to move through. And as described in Michael Newton's book, saying you can just come here for rest and relaxation, have fun. Again, it doesn't mean you have to need to live in a gold palace. Maybe you live in a tent on the beach in Hawaii or the Caribbean or something, maybe to you that's fun, or you're traveling around in a tiny camper with your soulmate, just seeing the world. Maybe one of those things where you live on a cruise ship and you just do ports of call and just see the world. Why not do that too? And so there's different aspects of this work, but it's also the possibility, like school, if it doesn't go well, if you don't learn what you're supposed to learn because it got tripped up some way, because there is this aspect of amnesia, a forgetfulness of the afterworld. And maybe that's just the way the brain works, or maybe that's on purpose because of the learning we're supposed to go. If we knew that we're here for learning, it would take away some of the learning experience or how we develop. There needs to be kind of veil that the children seem to be better able at connecting with that. Maybe the veil is entirely closed for some kids or all kids, but what if you don't learn the lesson? What if you're at university and you're taking a chemistry class or a physics class or something, and if you don't do well, you're taking the class over again, right? Maybe with a different teacher, maybe at a different university, And so what if that happens here? Do we have to do it over again? It reminds me of a story I put in my book. So I wrote a book, a Past Lives Guidebook. It's more about the science behind this. There's a lot of great books, Brian Weiss and Dolores Cannon and Michael Newton, of course, and lots of others that talk about people's stories and their experiences. And so I was more curious myself about, well, how is this working with time and consciousness and the research and consciousness being non-local, and what is the evidence to this? What's happening within the brain? A lot of talk about the pineal gland and what's going on there. And so what I thought would be a 200-page book ended up being a 450-page book because it's so extraordinarily fascinating and interesting. One puzzle piece leads to another puzzle piece. And one of the stories I put in there is something I heard when I was training. And the teacher who was doing that day's lesson in past life regression or spirit world regression, whichever it was, but it was before class started. We're just chit-chatting, waiting for everybody to get there and start class. And he was talking about how he, when he was learning, and this probably had to have been the early 1990s or so, he was very excited. He's like, I'm going to learn hypnotherapy. I'm going to take these trainings. I'm going to learn past life regression. He's telling his friend. And his friend's, oh, that's really great. That's exciting. You know, my ex-wife did past life regression. And this is about the time Michael Newton books are coming out. Brian Weiss's books out there, Many Lives, Many Masters. So there was this interest in past life regression. And she wanted to, hey, you can do this for fun. Just discover past lives, not unlike your genealogy, finding out about your ancestry. That's fun. It could be interesting. Mm-hmm. And so she went to just discover some past lives, worked with somebody, and the past life she discovered, and I don't know if it was a specific past life she was looking for, just randomly, go back to the past life that is most influencing your current life or is most beneficial for you to see. But she went to this past life. It was more of the Middle Ages, medieval kind of time period. And she was, part of this community, this village, and they're being, kind of strangled by the authority figures. They were all serfs, and the authority figures were in the king, and everybody was strangling them and taking their food for taxes and things. And so she was kind of forming this rebel alliance of, let's rebel against this. And they didn't like that, of course. And so they want to make an example of her. And since she's the one with the loud mouth, they threw her in jail. And this is medieval jail. This is not is a very horrible place to be. And they tortured her to death. This is her past life that she is experiencing. Yeah. And they were starving her to death, which is a very slow, painful way to go on top of all the other things that were going on, wanting to make an example of her and for the other people in the community. And she realized in that past life that her husband in this life was the jailer torturing her to death in that past life. And they got divorced a month later. And now I'm going to guess there were probably other issues in that relationship. But at the very least, it was a final straw because there was no healing around it. That person was unable, because of this traumatic experience, this person was experiencing, unable to resolve it, or not, she wasn't going to resolve it, but help her and guide her to facilitate her own healing around that issue. Because, and there's actually a divorce decree in Santa Fe County, New Mexico, here in America, that mentions past life regression. Because there was no healing from that. And she's like, well, look, he's doing it again, or he's like, and they may keep doing this over and over. And that person, if she was trained and knew what she was doing, could have helped her. Maybe even salvage that. It's like, oh, you two have been doing this for a long time, haven't you? What is this pattern that you two seem to keep going through? What are you trying to learn? How are you trying to go? That may have resolved a lot of the issues within the relationship this time as well, as she sees the bigger picture of it all. Yeah. But it was just an experience. It was just like, have a good time and just randomly go, we have these movie theaters that have 25 movies in them. It was just like randomly going into the movie and hope it's not a horror film. Hopefully it's a romantic comedy. She had an experience that, changed her life, literally, in not a good way, and ruined her current life, or it may have not ruined, at least made it more intense and maybe even worse, one could say, unless there is some abuse or something going. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty extraordinary because if she had gotten the resolution to that, she could have seen even the relationship in this life, even if it was abusive, let's say, it's like, okay, I understand we're doing this dance and it needs to get resolved, and now I can walk away, or this needs to get repaired, or I understand what we've been doing countless lives together, and I finally understand we can graduate from this now. In the next life now we can, get a little boat and sail around the world and have fun. But there is no healing there. And that's the most important aspect to this, is the healing. Yeah. And if that does not happen, again, just like this story, it might potentially, and I don't want to scare people off from this, certainly, but it's important to know who you're working with and what their training is. And I find if people are not bragging about their training, that's suspect to me. If you can understand how they're able to help you if things get into the rough, then then you can feel comfortable, I think, working with somebody. So it's sort of like a talk therapist. You know, you don't want to go to a psychotherapist knowing that they've just done like 20 hours of video training. I mean, well, what if something extraordinary comes
No,
up that I need to help me with? It's like, do you know how to deal with that? How have you worked with people? How long you it's like there's a lot of questions to ask before, because again, it can be just for fun, but that's what she did. She went just for fun, and it had an experience that was extraordinarily life-changing for her in this current life.
I also, let me see what you think, but I also believe, from my perspective, I've done a lot of deep healing in past life as well myself, because I haven't found anyone who also, how can I say, been able to hold a safe space, because
Mhm.
they've walked the talk before me, if I say it that way. And what you're mentioning, I find more and more of, how can I say, there is a lot of people out there doing a lot of spiritual work right now,
Yeah.
but they haven't done their own,
Right.
how can I say, depths of it, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
so it could also trigger, it can trigger trauma from both ends. Like,
Yeah.
they can be triggered as well because they
Yeah.
haven't.
If they
So
haven't
what's
done it.
your
Yeah. It's
experience
sort of
with
like
that?
that's like the auto mechanic who has a really, crappy car that
Yeah,
is falling apart. It's
yeah,
is haven't done the work on their own car, you know.
no,
And so, yeah, definitely. And again, it's not to scare people off of this work. It's extraordinarily
no, no,
important.
no.
You can even do, like, go on YouTube, and there's lots of different videos and recordings on YouTube, and I'm sure Spotify and other places where you can do a past life regression, just like a general. I mean, it's a recording, so it's not going to be specific to you, but it'll be general. I mean, there's Brian Weiss recordings on YouTube, and you do
Mm,
a past life regression, kind of a group past life regression with Brian Weiss. And so you can experience it, understand it, but of course that's going to be a more generalized, broad past life regression. If you want something specific, if there's like, even you're not
mm,
even sure what, it's just like a lot of people come to me, and I do a lot of this work over Zoom, like we're doing now.
yeah,
So I work with people
yeah,
over Europe, even though I'm here in Flagstaff, Arizona, in the mountains of Arizona, near the Grand Canyon, near Sedona. Because I work with people around the country and around the world. I worked with somebody last week, two people, one in England and one in Switzerland,
yeah,
because there's extraordinary technology, and it works well, because whether it's more clinical hypnotherapy of working with an issue in this life or past life regression, because I'm not fixing anyone,
no,
and I'm not like, this isn't massage, this isn't surgery, I'm not doing it to you. I'm
mm,
guiding you through an experience you're having yourself, that you're going to
mm,
have for yourself, that technically you can do on your own, but just with a guide. If you kind of get stuck, or you move up into soul world, it's like sitting in a nice hot jacuzzi, a nice hot tub. It's like, oh, it's nice in the
yeah,
hot tub, you're hanging with your friends, and you don't want to get out of the hot tub. It's like, well, we need to get out of the hot tub and move maybe to the
yeah,
healing place, or maybe find out more information about your current life and your purpose and your mission. So it's time to get out of the hot tub. But
yeah,
with this work, if you want to, people come to me because they've done the therapy in this current life. They've been to a talk
yeah,
therapist. They've been talking for years. They've been to psychotherapy. They've been to life coaching. They've
mm,
done all they can think of to deal with this, and they're still angry, and they still have the anxiety, or they still have the fear, or they still have the resentment,
mm,
or whatever they're dealing with.
mm,
They still have the issues around relationships. Patterns keep coming up. Why do they keep dating the same kind of person? All that kind of stuff.
mm,
And they read Brian Weiss, or they read Dolores Cannon, or they read my book or something, and they're like, yeah, this feels right. This feels comfortable. This feels familiar.
mm,
And they think, yeah, maybe this has something to do with the past life. I mean, I've done everything else.
mm,
So maybe the next step, because now when, a person's ready, the information will come to you. Now this information about past lives is coming. They hear a podcast of
mm,
that. This is the next step. And again, great
mm,
healing can happen. And that's what we follow. Again, it can be just as vague as go back to the past life that is influencing this anger. Go back to the past life that is the karmic cause of this resentment that, you know, the person is feeling, or the fear. You know, I live in the mountains of Arizona, the big, huge desert of Arizona. I live up here in the mountains. If somebody was born and raised and lived in Arizona, you know, in the mountains of Arizona, and had a deep, extraordinary fear of deep ocean water, why? You know, and maybe because they saw a film, and the horror film about the ocean or something, or a crazy documentary. But what if it was because of past life? Maybe they haven't seen a film. Maybe they just have always had this extraordinary fear of deep ocean water, even as a kid, and there's no explanation for it because they've never seen the ocean. So could that be related to a past life? Could those fears, just like a fear maybe in your current life, be resolved using these healing techniques of therapeutic hypnosis? Apply that in a more spiritual sense of, is this connected to a past life? You know, the relationships you're having with people, are they part of your soul group? That's another thing that comes from, and not just Michael Newton's book, other people's books, but Michael Newton's book. They show that, you know, we have this soul family, a soul group. You start early on at 5, you know, as a young soul, as you're entering school at 5 years old, and going together to getting your master's degree together. And maybe you're here to help each other, you know, in this life. Maybe this life is focused on a member of your soul group, and you're here to help them, to help support and encourage. Or maybe it's about you, or maybe it's about all of you this time. But it's sort of like actors in a theater troupe. Your town has a community theater troupe of 8 actors, and they do 6 plays during the year. And in January, they do this play. They say, okay, this is a play we're going to do, and here are the roles. They hand out the scripts, and this is the time period it's going to be in, and here are the costumes we're going to play, and here's the roles everybody's going to play, and here's how these characters in this play are going to develop from Act 1 to Act 3. So by Act 3, they're different characters because they've learned and they grow, maybe through tragedy. And then they take a break, and then they come back in March and they do another play. Totally different play, different characters, different time period, different costumes. Everybody's having a different role from each other, but there's the same actor. And just like us, we're the same soul. We're just playing a different role, a different character, and we're learning different things. But it could also be, let's say I'm an actor in that theater troupe, and in January I'm doing this play, and to be a dramatic actor, I jump off the couch, but I land on my ankle wrong, and I roll my ankle and I sprain my ankle, and now I'm on crutches for the rest of the play. And we take a break, and then we come back in March, and my ankle still hurts, so I'm still on crutches. Well, now I got to do this new role in this new play as a new character with crutches because of an injury I sustained in a past play, in a past role. The rolled ankle, my hurt ankle, has nothing to do with this new thing I'm doing, but I brought it forward. And while not the greatest analogy in the world, it's like you can see, like, well, if I can create some healing and some resolution around that ankle that comes from a past role I played, you know, then I can, you know, move around in this next role with more comfort and more ease. And so that's what the past life regression can help you with. Again, it can just be for fun, for discovery, you know, again, just like your genealogy. But, you know, if you're digging into your ancestry, to your DNA and things, I mean, some people find horrible things that their family has done in the past, you know, whether with war or slavery or something else. And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Your maybe even recent ancestors were not nice people. You know, how do you work with that? You just went to discover. It was fun, you know, discover where you come from, where your ancestors came from. And now you know all this information about your family that is disagreeable and not fun to learn about. So how do you deal with that? And same with the past life. You just go for fun and interest and to learn more about yourself and what you're learning, and find out something by yourself. Because maybe, you know, one aspect of learning and growing is not only to be have trauma thrust upon you, but maybe you're the one creating the trauma. You know, every great story needs a villain, I guess, you know. And what if this time around you got chosen, or you agreed to, or some other way, you end up being that role. You end up being the jail guard. This time, maybe you're the wonderful, helpful person that helps grandmothers across the street and, works for charities and things. But in a past life, you were the jailer in a medieval prison. What happens when you find that out? If that, is part of your training. So I can't think of this answered any of your questions, or if I'm even still on the same topic. It seems like so long ago you asked a question, and now I keep rambling because it's early in the morning and I'm drinking.
I already forgot.
I don't know if I'm making any sense. There's so many rabbit holes. There's so many rabbit holes. As we were talking about this last week, there's so many rabbit holes, and one rabbit hole leads to another rabbit hole, and there's this maze that you go down. And I scratch in my head. It's like I can't remember what the question was.
But I think I know when I was a child and I was lying to my mom and I was like sneaking around. I wanted to meet some boys and stuff. And I remember one time and I could see she was going with her car and I could see our dog in the car as well. And instantly, I was just hiding. It was like my body remembered how to act.
You're right. Yeah.
In a way, this is, of course, me many years ahead of time, reflecting back. I didn't understand it back then. I just did whatever. And later on, I was like, wow, there is a lot of stuff from past lives when I knew how to, like my body remembered how to do in that kind of situation. It's been more and more things coming up where I've been like, how can I know this? When you know, but you haven't read it, but you just know it. And especially I have a fireplace here, and like 3 years ago or something, I got burned, and I was like, okay, I kind of, how can I say, the pain is familiar, and I kind of like it. I don't like it, but it's
familiar. Yeah,
it's familiar,
and it may
and
be
then something else happened.
Yeah, and it might not. Maybe so much like being burned, but maybe that reminds you of a life that was fun and so it's fascinating. Especially there seems to be a skill aspect to this as well. The more you kind of work you do, not just with past life regression or spirit world exploration or something like that, but just spiritual work. It's like meditating or exercising at the gym or something.
Yeah,
the more you do, martial arts. You just don't get a black belt on your first day of martial arts class, but you can grow and expand and learn. And, as you're learning a musical instrument, you get better at it. And just like this, as we kind of understand how to use this brain of ours as an antenna and pull in information, maybe we just, like any skill, we just get better at it, and as one piece of the puzzle you start starting to see that picture. And it gets maybe easier to finish the puzzle because now you see what the picture is going to be, and so, so it's
but also I think I found, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, but I found it interesting. Exactly what you said. Like the more I healed, I would say, the more layers I healed, it doesn't scare me when things comes up. So kind of subconsciously probably are looking for my own, connecting my own dots. But there was something else with the burning, because I know I've been burnt. There was also, it just came through to me as a witch in a past life and my witchcraft. And that has like come back in this lifetime that I had. I was scared of being visible a couple of years ago online and, really standing my truth. And what I was going to say is that at first, my nervous system went all over the place first. I kind of went into a panic attack because it triggered something within me. And then I could I started to breathe and I was like, okay, I started to say it out loud.
Yeah.
This has already happened. It's not now.
Yeah.
Because it's been a lot of, unfolding from my body and cell memory without knowing. So I've been through some stuff that I'm so grateful that I actually had someone that could hold the support, like you say, and be very calm and like, yeah, it's already happened. It's not now.
Yeah. And to a certain aspect of this isn't time travel. Like when you're doing this deep work, spiritual work of past life regression, you're not time traveling back to that time. It'd be just like me asking about school. When you were 16, tell me about school. Who were your friends?
Yeah.
Where was the school? What were your favorite classes? Do you remember your teachers? Maybe you went to dances, or were you doing sports? Were you in theater? Were you in music? Did you smoke cigarettes behind the gym? Tell me about school. It's not that you go back to being 16 and you time travel and you're there again, like that movie Back to the Future or something. It's you're having a memory. Or I can, hey, you went on that trip, last year. Tell me about that. Where did you go? What was that place? Because I want to go there. Tell me about the hotel you're at, or the wedding you went to, or that meeting at work last month. Tell me about what they're speaking about, the marketing. And it's not that you go back to the meeting or the wedding or back to school. You're having a memory of it. And even like your earliest memory, some people, it's 5 years old or even 2 years old or something. Well, all we're going to do is go back a little bit further. Sort of like you're swimming in the shallow end of the pool, of the swimming pool. We're going to go to the deep end of the pool. It's the same pool. It's just now we're going to access deeper memories, pull the information, sort of like, and the analogy and the metaphors and the symbolism we can use is literally maybe going to a library and which book of your lives do you need to pull off the shelf? Because that's one aspect of this work is creating a symbolism and a metaphoric way of accessing these memories, because that's part of the way consciousness works in terms of metaphor and symbolism. The subconscious mind speaks to you in that way, and you can speak back to it. That's a big healing technique of hypnotherapy, is using more symbolic and metaphoric ways of finding that healing. But you can also use that in terms of accessing this, because to a certain extent, and I'm not going to use these terms right, but just as a metaphoric way of talking about it, we're pulling in this kind of 5D digital information, like through a fire hose, all this 5D digital information through this funnel into this 3D analog brain. And so it kind of has to make some translations as we pull in all this extraordinary information so we can actually understand it. Like when I take people to this to spirit world and I guide them to there, we always go to the healing place, whether it is like they felt they needed it specifically or not, because maybe there's some unknown issues that need to be resolved. Well, they can do it in healing, the healing space, and whether that's you're on your own or you're with your spirit guide, which you can meet there in soul world, or there's other healing beings there or something else. Some people experience it like it's a healing with water. I mean, they're standing under like a waterfall or soaking in a pool, a healing pool. Some people, it's more like energy or light, or maybe the healing beings have futuristic rods of energy that go up and down your body.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to guess up in spirit world, when we're just souls, there is no water. I'm just going to assume that. But the brain needed to create a metaphor around this healing work. The healing work is happening, and how is the brain going to translate it so you understand that healing work is happening? And for whatever reason, your brain, as it pulls all this 5D information into a 3D brain, says, well, it's kind of sort of like water. That's the best way to describe it here on Earth. It's sort of like people who have near-death experiences. They pass, they see the other side, they come back, and they try to describe the colors they saw. Or something, it's like, how do you describe colors to somebody who's never seen them before? And there's sometimes just no way of explaining it, because there's this 3D world. How do you explain the fifth dimension or the fourth dimension or the 12th dimension or the 25th dimension?
Exactly.
It's sort of like that movie. If anybody's seen that movie Interstellar, with Matthew McConaughey and Anne
Yeah.
Hathaway. Not to give away the ending or anything. I mean, it was like that movie's been out 20 years, so but it's an extraordinary movie, and this doesn't hinder your enjoyment of the movie in any way. But at the end, in that 5D world of the Tesseract, he has to communicate with Earth, right? And how does he do that? Well, he can't just make a phone call with a cell phone. He has to push the books. He has to do Morse code with the watch. He has to put the dust on the floor. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. He just can't communicate directly from the 5D world to the 3D world. And so it's sort of like this. It's like, well, we have to accommodate this information. And that's why some people may feel like they're making it up. It's like, oh, there's no water in spirit world. Oh, give me a break. Light, like they have these light rods. That sounds like, pretty futuristic nonsense to me. It's like, well, in and of itself, maybe, they don't have futuristic rods, and there isn't a water, like a pool of water you soak in to relieve all the negativity. But that's the way your brain has to communicate it to you. Doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just that this is the way you have to experience it in the 3D world, which is what we can only understand at this moment. And so there are people who like have these experiences and they're just like, well, I think I'm making it up. Especially if like they go back to a time they're interested in, like here in America, somebody may be very interested in the Civil War back in the 1860s, Abraham Lincoln and all that. And, they read all the books and they see the Ken Burns documentary twice a year, and they have the uniform and they go to Gettysburg and they do reenactments, sort of like the Renaissance Fair, but it's the Civil War, and they charge each other with their wooden muskets and rubber bayonets. And then they talk and discuss and have panel discussions. And then they like, oh, read Brian Weiss, or they, read Dolores Cannon, or they read my book or something. It's like, oh, this is interesting. I want to do a past life. And when they do a past life, it's of the Civil War. Well, now we got a chicken and egg thing. It's like, well, are they so interested in the Civil War because they had a past life as a Civil War soldier that needs to get resolved? Or is the subconscious mind creating the metaphor of the Civil War because they're so interested in it to find that healing or that discovery of about their purpose? And so that's where it's like people say, well, I'm just making it up because of course it's a Civil War. But again, it's like, why are you into the Civil War? Are you just into the Civil War because it fascinates you? Therefore, your subconscious mind maybe created a metaphoric healing around the Civil War because you would understand it better? Or do you need to resolve something? That's why you're trying to figure it out here in this life, replay it over and over and over again, understand more about it. Why did this happen? Because of the resentment and the anger held from that experience. And that's where it gets a little mind bendy and a little mind twisty, and why, in and of itself, it's like, well, I think I can prove that this stuff exists, past lives, and we keep coming back again and again. I think that's been firmly established over the last 60 years. Sort of like the William James quote. William James is one of the kind of pioneers of modern psychotherapy here in America. And he said, to prove that all crows are not black, you only need one white crow. And so it's like, well, I think even just the Brian Weiss book, Many Lives, Many Masters, pretty much establishes that this is how things work, let alone the work of Michael Newton, and let alone Edgar Cayce, let alone the U.S. government's work in remote viewing, where they not only, to prove that consciousness is now local and can see location far away on the other side of the earth, but they can move forward and backwards in time. And so I think we've proven that aspect of it. And that's a big part of what my book's all about. The Past Lives Guidebook is the science behind it all. The pineal gland, the 40,000 tiny little crystals in the pineal gland, and is that creating this electromagnetic field that turns the brain into an antenna? This is fascinating stuff. But you really only need one of those. Like we got many of those. So I think it's true. Now, whether the person having the experience, whether that's an actual past life or that's more of your mind and soul and higher self creating a metaphoric story for the healing.
Mm.
That I don't know that I could ever prove one way or another unless you're getting extraordinarily detailed information that you can go ask a PhD or an archaeologist or an Egyptologist or somebody if this is true or that is true. But that's why I think the important aspect of this is the healing and the discovery you can make. Now, it doesn't necessarily, not all past lives have to have a healing element to it. It can, of course. That's a big aspect of people are looking for when they come work with me, is the healing that you're looking for. Again, it could just be for fun and discovery and understanding more about your purpose here in life. Do I have multiple lives? If you're a healer, you do healing work, or you're more of a spiritual person. Have I had many lives as a spiritual person? Have I had many lives as a healer? Go back to the past life where you had your more spiritual life. Go back to the past life, where you encounter your soulmate as the greatest romantic partner ever. And just to have that experience. You can go through many aspects of your past lives just to discover something. And it doesn't necessarily mean and we're not going to be able to go through the entirety of that past life. I mean, if you live to be 103 years old in that past life, of course, we can't go through every hour of that 103 years. And so what we're going to look at is 4 or 5 significant events in that life that have to do with, even if, again, it's just as broad or as general as go back to the past life that's most influencing your current life. Okay, well, we're going to go to 4 or 5 specific events or situations in that life that have to do with influencing your current life. And so we get those aspects of it. And, you may be younger or older. It doesn't have to be, your experience doesn't have to be a linear chronological timeline. You start when you're 8 years old, then you go to 16, then you go to 25, and then you go to 45, and then you're 80. It could be you start at 45, and then you go to being 12, and then you go into being 16, then you go to be 25. You can jump around. And it's a very, very interesting to see the way people do it, because everybody's just a little bit different. But we also then go to the end of that life, because that's very important. What happens at the end of life? And what are the emotions and the thoughts about that life? Is life fair or unfair? Is love easy or hard? Are you vowing revenge because of what happened in that life? Or, how is there any connections happening with this current life? And what are they? Are they negative or are they positive? And that often gets established in those last moments. We're like, well, this is it. Boy, that life was amazing. That life really sucked. And I'm really angry that it ended like this, so young, or that I'm alone in my old age or whatever. And then you move out of that body into soul, and then we move up into that soul world. And that's where the healing happens. Are there cords connecting you to that past life that may be connecting you to this current life? Let's pull them out. Or is there other type of healing that needs to happen? Let's reunite with your soulmates. Do you recognize anybody in that past life that may be playing a role in your current life? What about your spirit guide? Do you see them working with you in your current life? What is their advice to you? How do they sense you're doing in this current life? What's your grade? Are you A++? Are you a C-? Are you going to have to get tutoring? You have to go to summer school. You have to repeat the grade, and, but you can also go to the current life viewing room, is what they describe it in Michael Newton's books. The current life viewing room. They're like, well, what's your purpose here? What's your mission? What are your ultimate goals? Who's here to help you? Are you here supporting other people? You can get sometimes the information is blocked because it may interfere with what you're here to learn and how you're to grow. But you can get a lot of information, and it helps settle you. Why do I have this relationship pattern that keeps repeating? Maybe it was understood in the past life and that got healed, or maybe there's more understanding that needs to come around that, or you can find out a lot of this information. And that's why this work can be so healing. And oftentimes these sessions are like 3 hours, 3.5 hours, because there's so much to go through. It seems like 10 minutes, But whether it's like a 90-minute session or a 3-hour session, is pretty extraordinarily healing. And the discoveries and insights you make is pretty impressive. And, and this is just, you were talking before, like, we might need to do a part 2 or a part 3 or something, because there's so much information, so many rabbit holes to go down. And we're already, over an hour into this, and it's, we barely scratched the surface. It seems like it's like there's so many, and we often, like I was telling you last week, is like there's more questions than answers by the time we're done talking about it. It's like, well, but what about this and what about that? And that's why my book, why a 200-page book turned into a 450-page book, is because of just so many questions. It's like, well, yeah, but if consciousness is non-local, does that mean, well, now you've got 5 more questions? Once you understand that consciousness is non-local, can do remote viewing, like the U.S. government spent decades and millions of dollars investigating to try and weaponize and spy on the Soviet Union, and so it's pretty extraordinary. So,
but how can, Craig, if someone wants to buy your book, like myself, what is like the easiest way?
Well, the easiest way, would be Amazon. Now it's at the warehouse where I think bookstores can order it. There's a place called Ingram Sparks, and most bookstores around the world have access to this book wholesaler, and it's there. So I think pretty much any book around the world can get it. But of course, it's on Amazon. That's probably maybe the easiest way to get it. Past Lives Guidebook. And, if people are interested in this and want more information, I'm happy to talk with people. Like I say, I do most of my work over Zoom, and what's fascinating about this is, like, whether it's the clinical hypnotherapy or the more deeper spiritual work, since the COVID era, and we all went to Zoom, whether you're a talk therapist or your relationship counseling or life coaching or whatever, doctor's appointment. And what research has shown that's fascinating about this is Zoom sessions, online virtual sessions, work as well as in person. And that's because people feel relaxed and comfortable in their homes. And especially if you live in like a large town, you don't have to drive across the entirety of your large town to get to your appointment. And when you're done, you're at home. And there's even been research that shows Zoom sessions work better than in person. And so people like the convenience, and it gives me the ability to work with people around the United States, around the world. And it's extraordinary. So Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy is the URL. Sacred Mystery is the kind of branding I'm doing for this more esoteric work now. And you can find me there. You can find the book on Amazon. And happy to talk with you. If you want more information about this, we can email or we get on a Zoom call and just chat. And it's pretty extraordinary stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Then I will have all your links as well. So when you're listening to this episode and you want to be in contact with Craig, and if you have questions, I would love if you have questions and we can kind of create a Q&A as well.
Oh, yeah. Maybe
we
do
would
this
love
again.
questions.
People, send in questions. Yeah, happy to do this. Maybe do this on a regular basis. People just write in their questions. Yeah, and I'll check out when it gets released. I'll keep my eye on the comment sections and things. There's so many places to look nowadays.
Yeah.
It's all YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and things. So
I know.
I'll try to keep my eyes.
But I will let you know.
Yeah, thanks.
Of course. But for everyone who's been listening, and if you are into this work or are new or wherever you are in your journey, I loved how you described everything, because it's it's kind of, you simplified it very beautiful. And that's also a skill set, I would say.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of the unseen and so on. So Craig, like a final short words.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, I know.
Have you not been listening to me? I can't do short.
I know. That's why I said that. Like really short. Something. Just one thing you want to share.
I'll do my best. What do you want me to do short? Just one last thing.
You can, okay. Okay, is there, since we are soon going into next year,
Okay.
is there anything from your perspective and your journey that you want to share, that you want to focus more on? I don't know
Me.
or
Well,
maybe
yeah,
this was
personally,
too wide.
yeah. What's fascinating. So we're recording this a couple weeks before the new year, 2026.
Yeah.
And my big focus has just been this work. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, mountains of Arizona. We're right near the Grand Canyon, but we're also right near Sedona. And Sedona is, if people are not familiar, maybe you've heard about Sedona, Arizona, but it's this very spiritual town in the beautiful red rocks. It has these vortexes of energy that people go to meditate at and things like that. So it's a very spiritual town, but it brings a lot of practitioners there. And so I always felt that it was hard to not compete, but get attention, I guess. When the big spotlight is on Sedona, Arizona, it's hard to wave a flashlight around in the next town over and say, yeah, but I also do past life regression. So, and since my training and I've been working with this, I've focused more on the more clinical side of things, current life issues of trauma and the hurt and pain somebody may have been through, the anger they may be holding on to, the confidence they want to build. But I always loved the spiritual side of this. That's kind of one of the aspects of when going to that training I did, but just in my life in general, as I started off, when you asked me about my life, is like, that's a big aspect of me. So I always did it, but I just more focused on the clinical side to kind of just establish myself and run this kind of therapeutic business I'm doing. But with COVID, I now can reach people around the world. And if there's any silver lining to that extraordinarily dark cloud of COVID, that it was that we now feel comfortable working in this way of these virtual sessions. So it opened up the world. Basically, it opened up the world to me. I've worked with people, and this isn't to brag or to flex, but I've worked with people in Puerto Rico. I've worked with people in Costa Rica. I've worked with people in Lithuania, in Bulgaria, in Rome, in London. Worked with people around the world, Iceland, and because of this technology, and it works well. It works extraordinarily well. And so if you're interested in this and you want more information, I'm happy to email you to you. But in terms of your question, I say, I can't do this short. I warned you this wasn't going to be short.
I know.
In terms of moving forward, it's like I want to focus on this work. I'm excited about it, even more so since the book, because I wrote the book for myself because I was just fascinated. It's like, well, I started asking questions about it. I mean, I'm always asking questions, but it's like, what about remote viewing
Since you were
and that consciousness is non-local? How does that relate to past life regression? I started focusing on that. And all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm interested in this. Maybe other people are interested too, because I'm skeptical about this. I'm sort of like that true believer and a skeptic all at the same time. And so I want to understand as best as possible how this all fits together and how it all works. And so as I put the book together and I started putting that out there, I started talking to people, on podcasts and things. And I sort of kind of did this rebrand, if you will, with Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy, because my clinical hypnotherapy business is called Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, which is a mouthful and has the word Arizona in it. And so I think people get a little, oh, he just works in Arizona. It's like, well, so I wanted something that was more open, at least perceived by everybody. Because again, even with Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, I work with people around the country, around the world. But So 2026, in terms of this new year coming up, we're doing a lot of expos and conferences, and I just met somebody who does podcasting, who's one of her aspects of her business is she rents castles around Europe and does retreats in them. And so what are the possibilities of doing a past life regression retreat in a castle in Ireland? So there's an aspect of that. So there's this really exciting opening up to this kind of next phase of this work for me, and going a little bit deeper and wider, and shining more of the spotlight on this work of past life regression and soul world exploration. So anyway, that's short for me in explaining what's next for me. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I kind of had a feeling already that you were going to physically be more visible abroad. Yeah. And I need to talk to you about that as well.
Okay.
Off
time.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We will have more episodes. More episodes will come up. But I mean, we only met last week. It feels like much longer. But I love the way you are describing and like, I don't know. It's just, I love your energy as well.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I think it's,
and I try. And I think part of that aspect is I tried to explain it in a way that I would understand it. And I figure it's like, well, other people might understand it like this as well. This is just kind of way I work. I'm firmly grounded on this earth, but I feel like I want to float away into the more spiritual side of things. So it's sort of like kind of, therefore I want to understand it on both sides of the fence, not just in a spiritual way, but also in a grounded, we're here on earth, and my 3D brain can only understand it in this way. But I enjoy the history of it, of this work, and the book, the Past Lives Guidebook. In terms of the history, we start with Neanderthal burial sites 50,000 years ago. And is there any aspect of these burial sites that indicates they have an understanding of life after death? And so we start with Neanderthal burial sites 50,000 years ago and continue on of like, well, what are other cultures throughout history? What are their understanding of reincarnation and past lives and coming back again and again and learning and growing? And, and then you get this, huge book that kind of jumps all over the place and has lots of tangents. But I think by the end of it, at least the way my brain works, it's like you see this big puzzle gets put together. It's like, okay, I think by the end of it, it's like you can't come to any other conclusion than this is the way life, the universe, and everything seems to work. And so that's what I do it in a way that I understand it. And so hopefully other people will too. So anyway, I appreciate all the kind things you said. It's really nice.
No, but I really mean it. And thank you all who have been listening and will be listening. And we love for you to share this episode with someone who are interested in past life or hypnotherapy and love to know more. That would be great as well. Thank you so much.